my beautiful co-creators, Lilou here. Today I'm in the UK, as you can tell by the outfit. I'm north, actually, in Manchester with Steve. Hello, Steve.
Hello, Lilou.
Good to see you in person after our Skype interview.
Nice to see you too. You're much taller than I expected.
That's what most of the time people tell me. Yeah, you can't tell, but I'm actually 6 foot. 6 foot.
Yeah?
So you're shorter.
Well,
we all know.
Don't tell people that. It's bad for my superiority complex.
Yeah. We'll speak about the ego, because this is something you looked at, and you wrote many books. How many books?
I've written 7 books, including my book of poetry.
Yeah. Your latest book of poetry that I have here, that actually Eckhart Tolle was holding a few days ago, or how long ago?
It was last Saturday, so 4 days ago, in Canada.
You went up there.
That's right, yeah, I went to Canada for a dialogue with Eckhart, which was recorded for Eckhart TV. It's going to be broadcast in probably early next year, I think.
I can't believe he's also moving into the hosting of TV shows and having all those beautiful conversations. It's wonderful.
Yeah. I think he seems to be moving away from writing and more towards, working through the internet. Yeah. And Eckhart TV has a massive, I don't know how many, but has a massive number of members. Yeah. Millions of people.
So you're a lecturer, an author. One of your latest book, Back to Sanity, and the one before that, Out of Darkness. We spoke about it during the Skype interview, but I would love to that you tell us again what is, first of all, your perception on spiritual awakening.
Well, based on my research, on my own personal experience, spiritual awakening occurs most often, not always, but most often after a period of intense turmoil and psychological suffering. So many spiritual teachers, for example Eckhart and Byron Katie, for example, they went through intense periods of turmoil before they awakened. And in my researches, I spoke to many people who'd experienced awakening, and that was the main factor. They went through intense turmoil, sometimes it was bereavement, maybe their partner died or a child perhaps died, or it was possibly alcoholism or drug addiction. For many people, it was being told that they had cancer and only had a certain amount of time left to live. It could have been negative life events like divorce or the loss of a job, for example. But all of these things were triggers which led to awakening. Not immediately. There was usually a few months or even years of intense psychological turmoil. Mm-hmm. And obviously, everybody goes through turmoil at some time in their lives. That's the most. As the Buddha said, life is suffering. Everybody goes through suffering at some point. But obviously not everybody experiences awakening. So obviously there are some factors which separate the people who do from those who don't. And I think the main factor in my research was acceptance. The people who experienced transformation had the capacity to accept and to let go. They surrendered to what was happening. Obviously, it's kind of natural for human beings to fight suffering, to fight negative predicaments. We struggle to get better. You fight your cancer, for example, which is natural. But transformation usually occurred when people were willing to let go, to stop resisting. It doesn't mean they stop having therapy or treatment for their cancer, but it means that their attitude shifted. They accepted it fully. They accepted the consequences of it. They accepted the fact they may die. And that was what triggered the transformation for most people.
Mm-hmm. You speak also of the ego. So is that the ego that brings us to this place, do you believe, of so much suffering that eventually we let go?
I think so. I think what happens is that as we grow older, as we grow into adulthood, and as we take on our careers and as we have families, get married, etc., we slowly accumulate attachments. We slowly accumulate ambitions for the future, an idea of where we're going in the future. We accumulate status, we accumulate a sense of being important people, of being respected people. We perhaps accumulate possessions. We have a role, we accumulate our careers, our role as whatever your job is, and your role as a mother or a father or a husband or wife. And all of the attachments, they strengthen the sense of ego. I think that if you go back to adolescence, one of the reasons why adolescence is such a confusing time is because people don't have a sense of identity. Mm-hmm. They suddenly emerge from the innocence and the bliss of childhood into this sense of, they know that they are individuals, but they don't really have a strong sense of identity.
That could be a good thing then. That could be the right path to spiritual enlightenment then, right then.
It could be. Yeah, that's a good point. Adolescence could be, a portal into spiritual awakening. But most people, unfortunately, don't see it like that. They see their task as to accumulate attachments, to strengthen their identity, to collect an identity. So by the time we reach adulthood, we're full of these attachments. We have all these building blocks, as I call them, the building blocks of the ego. And it gives us a sense of, it does give us a sense of identity. It gives us a sense of, I am Steve Taylor, I am an important author.
Part of the hundreds most spiritual people list.
Yeah, I'm a lecturer in psychology, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm an important person. But if...
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
But in the way that you are who you are, and you're doing your work, and you're...
In that sense, yeah, as long as I don't get attached to it. Yes. So attachment is a problem. Some people say that you can be wealthy as long as you're not attached to your wealth. Well, I think that's extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult to have the wealth and not be attached to it. And also, why would you accumulate wealth if you didn't have an attachment to it? Maybe accidentally.
How is Eckhart dealing with that? Because he became quite wealthy and known and at the top of the list, huh?
Well, you'd have to ask him. I can't speak for him.
But your feeling of being with him was...
Yeah, my feeling that he wasn't attached to it at all. He had no sense of himself as an important person or as a successful or wealthy person. There was no sense of that at all. But going back to what we were saying, when difficult circumstances come along, when, illness, bereavement, depression, etc., when these things come along, they destroy our attachments. That's the sense of loss we feel. The sense of loss we feel is that we have no future. The future is blotted out because we may be going to die. Mm-hmm. Our status is taken away. Our possessions are taken away. Our partners are taken away. Things are taken away. The building blocks of the ego are taken away from us, so the ego collapses. And that's why we feel so devastated, because our normal sense of identity collapses. So we feel lost. We don't know who we are. We don't know where we're going. But the positive side to that is there's suddenly an open space in our beings. Our beings are suddenly open and spacious. And it's almost as if there's a latent higher self which emerges at that point. It's like a butterfly emerging from a chrysalis. This latent higher self suddenly has the space to emerge. So it naturally unfolds. And it becomes our normal state of being. It becomes your normal identity. The old self dies. The old ego, with all of its attachments, dies. And this new self, which has no attachments, which is completely free, completely full, that becomes your normal state of being.
And that sense of being is very well connected to an infinite source of power, isn't it? Then we have more of a dialogue with the invisible, or with nature, or with the forces.
Exactly, yeah. Suddenly we're no longer enclosed in our own personal space. We're no longer encased in the body or the mind. Our being becomes much more expansive. We lose the sense of separation. I mean, that's one of the main characteristics of awakening, is that there is no separation. We transcend the sense of being trapped in our own mental space. Suddenly we're out there, we're participating in the whole cosmos. We're participating in our surroundings, we're connecting with nature, we're connecting with energies and forces, beyond the normal realm.
And there's no more time.
Good point, yeah. Well, time changes, we lose the sense of linear time, the sense that the future is a straight line in front of us, the past is a straight line behind us, and we're just here at the intersection of the future and the past. That linear view of time fades away, and in place, the present opens up. We have this panorama of the present. Mm-hmm. Rather than a straight line, there's suddenly this sphere, this panorama of the present. And the future no longer has any significance. It only exists as a convenient thing to make appointments, to meet deadlines, or maybe not meet deadlines. And the past the past can be convenient, and you can learn things from the past. You can remember where places are, etc. You can recognize people. But it has no significance. You don't live in the past, you don't live in the future. You're wholly, you purely inhabit the present.
life just unfolds naturally then, or what is there a ratio action, letting just being, or how does it all unfold?
Well, you're much more likely to latch onto the flow of life rather than directing life, which is in our normal egoic mode, the ego separate mode. We feel that we have to direct life, we have to make things happen. I have to become successful. If I'm not enlightened by this time next year, I'm going to commit suicide. So you feel as though you need to direct the course of your life. You need to make people see the world your way. But when you undergo awakening, you're suddenly happy to let go. You don't need to direct the world. You flow with the world. You don't try and swim. You just float, and you let the world carry you.
In another conversation, you were mentioning that Eckhart and you also we had some other conversation. I was laughing. You have this humor and this lightness, and Eckhart Tolle is becoming very, very humorous. Apparently, it's part of being enlightened too, of being awakened, isn't it?
That's right. I think one of my markers of whether somebody is genuinely awakened is whether they have this lightness, this buoyancy of humour. Now, if you look at the Dalai Lama, he's a very sort of mischievous guy throwing snowballs at reporters. He's a very funny guy. But if you meet a spiritual teacher who's very stern, who never laughs, never smiles,
or screams, that happens.
Yeah, that happens too. And it's probably a sign that he's not as awakened as he thinks he is, or she thinks she is. I think enlightenment or awakening always manifests itself in a lightness of mood, and you never carry problems or worries around with you, and it's very easy to see the light side of life, and it's very easy to laugh even in the face of all of the madness and chaos of the world, even in the face of a potentially bleak future for the human race. You're still able to find that buoyancy inside you.
Where do you think we are right now in our evolution on Earth? Do you also speak when you lecture about 2012 or what's happening right now? There's lots of different dates. Does all of that really matter, do you think?
I'm not personally so concerned about the dates, because after all, time is an illusion. But time is a man-made construct. So I'm not really concerned with the dates, but I think it's clear that we are at a very pivotal time in our evolution as a species. We're at a sort of crisis point where we can move forward or maybe fall backwards. I think it's clear that if we continue to pursue the path we're heading on now into the future, the future of the human race looks quite bleak. Ecological destruction, economic woes, political unrest, etc. But also, evolution has always headed in the direction of an intensified awareness right from the beginnings of life, billions of years ago. The very first single-celled creatures, the amoebae, they had a certain degree of awareness. They could react to their surroundings. And as life evolved, as more and more cells got together, and more life forms were created and became more complex through to plants and birds and reptiles, through to sheep, animals, human beings, etc. There's an intensification of awareness. There's an increasing complexity of form, but also an intensification of consciousness. Living beings become more aware of their surroundings. They become more connected to each other, and they have a greater conceptual awareness of reality, a wider awareness of reality. And that's definitely happening within us now, human beings. I think we're definitely moving into a new evolutionary phase where we have a wider awareness and a more intense awareness. And that's the positive side about what's happening now, is that this process of intensification, a collective intensification or expansion of consciousness, is underway. And once that happens, if that shift does occur, then we will probably move into a harmonious future. And we will begin to live in harmony with ourselves, with each other, and with the whole planet. But if we continue down the narrow egoic path, then we're going to continue in the direction we're heading at the moment, which is towards self-destruction, towards chaos and crisis. So
I would love to finish this conversation with one of your poems here, because this is brand new, isn't it?
Yeah, it just came out a few weeks ago.
The meaning, the poetic spiritual reflections. I would love you to read some of that. And why did you decide to write poems? Because you wrote books before. Poems are not quite the same.
No, but I think it's connecting to the source. We mentioned earlier that once your mind becomes quiet, you become connected to something transcendent, and that can manifest itself in ideas. You can get new ideas. It can manifest itself in music if you're musically minded, and it can manifest itself in books. My books come from that source too. But also, about 5 years ago, I started to just suddenly receive poems from that source. Not whole poems, but I get sort of fragments of lines or ideas, and I write them down and I construct a poem from those basic ideas. So it's kind of involuntary, really. Poems, they come to me, and I write them down.
Would you like to select one? Is there one specific that you're thinking of or that pops in this moment with your lovely British accent? Here, a poem.
I'll read a poem called The Meaning, which is the title of the collection. The meaning. You can't explain the meaning. Reduce it to thought or confine it to words. Break it down to basic building blocks or trace it back to an origin. But when you see the meaning, you know it. Just when you've forgotten it existed, you're driving along the motorway and turn your head to the side as if someone's tapped your shoulder. And it's there, stretched across the evening sky, filling the spaces between the clouds. You open the door to empty the bin, and it's there, rustling with the wind through the trees, stroking your face softly like a lover. You tilt your head back to catch the rain, and it's there, falling with the infinite silver points, bringing down benevolence from the sky. Your eyes spring open in the middle of the night, as if there's an intruder, an unfamiliar noise, and it's there, in the dense, rich darkness that fills the room, and the glow of unconscious communion around you and your partner's bodies. The most familiar, forgotten place, your home from a previous lifetime, a mother's soothing presence, and her warm, enfolding arms.
Thank you for this delicious moment. It's hard to bottle up, the meaning.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing about poetry. You can describe things which are difficult to catch in ordinary language. When music's similar, you can convey things which are difficult to convey in ordinary conversation or in prose.
Yeah. That's what's beautiful with art. There is still this part of then interpretation, but that takes it to a whole other level of interpretation.
That's
much higher consciousness.
I think that's why there's such a close connection between spiritual awakening and art, whether it's music or poetry or painting. It's because it's conveying something which is beyond words. It's something transcendent.
Beautiful. This was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this delicious moment, Steve, and I look forward to seeing you again or meeting you again around this world. Yeah. Who knows?
Hopefully it'll be warmer next time.
Yes.
We can meet in the south of France next time.
Yes, much warmer there, or Hawaii, where I'm heading next after Glasgow.
Nice.
To see the dolphins and all of you guys that are in Hawaii. I look so much forward to all these interviews. I'm heading up to Glasgow. There's the I Can Do It conference, and I will be interviewing Anita Moriani and David Helmanton. I look forward to sharing all those beautiful interviews and putting all those interviews out into the world for people to share and to witness.
You're doing wonderful work.
Thank you. And so are you. I love when we're doing our work and just doing it from love. And I see you're getting quite cold.
Yeah, I'm starting to shiver.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again, my beautiful co-creators. Thank you for supporting the tour and donating every day. This is how it's possible for me to travel around and set up the little camera here, and that we can do this interview and share that with you. I send you so much love and beautiful blessings to you. Bye.